While watching The Substance, I was reminded of David Cronenberg's Rabid from 1977. In Cronenberg's horror flick Rabid, a woman named Rose is critically injured in a motorcycle accident and undergoes an experimental plastic surgery procedure. The surgery leaves her with a grotesque side effect, a parasitic organism that feeds on human blood. Rose unknowingly spreads a rabies-like virus through a stinger hidden under her armpit which she contracted as the result of the surgery, causing a deadly epidemic in Montreal, Canada. As the infection spreads throughout the city, it plunges into chaos with outbreaks of violence, eventually leading to a frantic struggle for survival. Rabid was later remade in 2019 by the Soska sisters. In their interpretation, the experimental procedure was replaced with an advanced stem cell treatment, giving the movie a more contemporary flavour, and the stinger under the armpit was ditched in favour of a gooey, vile mouth parasite. The remake of Rabid and The Substance have an eerie similarity in their use of body horror to convey themes of identity, body image, and self-acceptance. In Coralie Fagit's The Substance, Demi Moore plays Elizabeth Sparkle, a once famous actress whose career has hit a wall. Desperate to regain her youth and the fame she had when she was younger, she chances upon a mysterious treatment called The Substance. After using it, Elizabeth splits into two versions of herself. The youthful, vibrant Sue, played by Margaret Qualley, and her former self, Elizabeth. The two must share Elizabeth's life and find a balance of 7 days each between them, or else face the ultimate consequences of this new split reality. Would Elizabeth, or anyone for that matter, be able to maintain such a careful balance and make the sacrifices necessary to live this life anyway? Watching the movie, I couldn't help but reflect on the fact that everyday people across the globe, and particularly those of us in the West, force themselves to make similar choices every single day in the name of beauty and self-acceptance. The sacrifices necessary for us to frailly cling to the scraps and shreds of our own self-esteem. Tattoos, piercings, cosmetic and plastic surgeries, epilation and hair removal, hair transplants, and so on and so forth. An endless, nameless list of procedures we undergo in order to feel better about our place and standing in the world. To feel attractive, to be validated, and most importantly, find that self-acceptance we are in such dire need of. This movie harks back to an era of horror filmmaking that puts emphasis on the self and our own identity. The movie most will link The Substance to is Cronenberg's The Fly from 1986, the quintessential work of Western body horror. Although I'd be remiss not to mention the iconic Japanese works of body horror like Shinya Tsukamoto's Tetsuo the Iron Man and Body Hammer. Body horror as a genre is notable in that there typically isn't some memorable slasher villain or classic monsters like vampires, werewolves or zombies, but rather the self, an inversion of what is typically featured in works of the horror genre. We are forced to ask ourselves, what if the monster was our own body corrupted by some virulent poison, radiation or scientific experiment, and it slowly starts betraying us? Much like the process of aging, the horror then becomes our very own flesh, twisting, warping and slewing off of ourselves. As our mind cracks and our sanity erodes as we bear witness to this corruption, this unique form of horror offers us an insight into ourselves in a way other subgenres of horror cannot. How do we navigate a world when our own body fails us? What does this say about us? If we're so prized as physical specimens, what are we then when that aspect of ourselves is ripped away from us and replaced with something grotesque, deformed, and horrific? We become the subject of that particular horror, and it affects us so deeply because we're forced to put ourselves in the shoes of the person that is undergoing this very change. Watching The Substance, I was reminded of the brutal struggle the overwhelming majority of us face as we navigate a world that prizes beauty and the superficial above all else. The bombardment of hypersexual imagery, content that aims to shame us into feeling a certain way or thinking a certain way, endless advertising for products that claim to improve our looks and looks max us into the best version of ourselves, and the omnipresent reminders of what society wants to deem beautiful and what it wants us to deem as unbeautiful, ugly, or vulgar. The visceral, uncompromising horror that takes place as the movie progresses and reaches such a bloody crescendo is, subtextually, indicative of the sacrifices we make in order to maintain that beauty and reach for that fountain of youth that will always exist just outside of our grasp, a hair's breadth away from our fingertips. It's precisely this quest for the fountain of youth that plays into our own collective hubris and becomes our undoing. We become the plastic surgery disasters that are then scooped up and, like an old geek show or freak show, are thrown in front of the cameras of a dozen different reality TV shows as the cautionary tales. The cruel irony then is that we're then granted the 15 minutes of fame we so desperately sought in the first place, but for the very thing we initially endeavoured to correct. There's an artistic flair in the substance that provides the counterbalance to the grisly imagery. Minimalist techno and the cool white lighting of the clinic where the substance is stored and left in numbered lockers to be collected by those who use it. Sue's hypersexual workout videos set to energetic electronic music, lyrics rife with double entendres, the camera work placing emphasis on her raw sexuality and the supple skin of youth, extreme close-up shots of plump crimson lips, bright blue eyes and tight white skin. We watch as this embodiment of beauty and sexuality takes show business by storm. It's hard not to get wrapped up in the visuals and pacing of Sue's scenes, her popularity and rocket to success contrasted by Elizabeth's loneliness and abject isolation. Scenes with Elizabeth are not punctuated with the frenzy and energy of dance music and bright, vivid visuals, but are often relegated to Elizabeth alone in dark rooms, oftentimes with no companions or music to accompany her. The scenes Elizabeth does share with others are filled with doubt and negativity, the mood often low and sullen. The slimeball agent Harvey, played with smarmy glee by Dennis Quaid, whom dismisses Elizabeth in the beginning of the film, is captured in garish close-ups that emphasize his eating and smoking, nicotine-stained teeth and bold, sleazy suits. The character of Harvey is the first taste of the grotesque the viewer is exposed to in the film. The quick cuts and extreme close-ups of his scenes, designed to cause discomfort and unease. The empathy the audience feels for the character of Elizabeth is only exacerbated by her abandonment and the quick acceptance everyone has of Sue in her stead. As the movie progresses and the horror truly begins, there's a cunning abstraction that takes place. As Elizabeth is losing her beauty and humanity, becoming a crippled hunchback and much closer to the popular conceptions and ideas of a witch, we, the audience, step back from our own empathy for the character as she broods and cackles, cooking up a storm in order to get back at Sue for stealing her own vitality and life force, subjecting herself to gluttonous feasts and bouts of laziness. As Elizabeth concocts these disgusting meals and stoops over them, much like a witch from a fairy tale stands over a cauldron and stirs a wicked witch's brew, the audience loses a lot of that connection with the character. Although justified in her actions to get revenge on Sue, the audience is then forced to choose between two diametrically opposed forces, the justified and the ugly, or the unjustified and beautiful. This dilemma has us picking one or the other, siding with the younger Sue or the older Elizabeth. Movie protagonists are typically attractive, handsome or beautiful, and when we're placed in that unique position to emphasize with someone that is physically repulsive and engaging in off-putting behaviors, does the younger and more selfish Sue then become the hero of the piece despite her clear and obvious moral failings? It is on you, the viewer, to decide then if the ends justify the means, and if you were in the same situation, would you trust this younger, idealized version of yourself to not take advantage of the sacred balance that holds everything together in the first place? The final act of the substance contains the inevitable violence of existence, and, symbolically, this violence and gore is also representative of the violence we commit upon ourselves in the name of beauty. The malformed monster standing before a crowd, spewing blood and pus as it tries to speak and reclaim some semblance of humanity, a modicum of understanding and acceptance. This distorted Elizabeth and Sue hybrid, appropriately named Monstro Elizasue, is the antithesis of the vibrant beauty and youth Elizabeth sought after in the beginning. But perhaps another irony is that this distortion of the human form is an ever-present possibility, the end result of our own hubris should we reach too far as we attempt to reclaim our youth and or overwork our finite and very human canvas. The Substance thus becomes a cautionary tale, a satire and a transgressive piece of body horror that weaves a tale that is as old as our species, forever obsessed with appearances and the superficial. These mindsets only exacerbated by the digital age and omnipresence of social media. Now more than ever, we run the risk of becoming the very cautionary tale The Substance tells. Our fate is Elizabeth's as we age and watch the world focus in on the new and beautiful, the hip and the young. Perhaps then, the real violence of the film is in our expectations and self-delusions as we aim to be Sue, when in reality, we are the monstrous combination of the two. As is emphasized multiple times throughout the film, you are one. We are both Elizabeth and Sue, together. We are one as we watch ourselves rot on prime time, live streamed 24/7, 365 days a year. This is The Substance. You are the Matrix. Everything comes from you. Everything is you. This is simply a better version of yourself. You just have to share 1 week for one and 1 week for the other. A perfect balance of 7 days each. The one and only thing not to forget, you are one. You can't escape from yourself. They managed to encapsulate everything perfectly in that one quote. You can't escape from yourself. Isn't that the real body horror? Well, I'm not gonna lie, it's taken me days to write and record all of this. Even though it's just text and a voice pretty much over, footage from the trailer of The Substance, it still takes quite a bit of time, especially when you're writing something that explores the sort of content and themes that I sort of explored in my video essay. If you've gotten to this point, I really appreciate it. It would mean the world to me if you dropped a comment and let me know your own thoughts about the movie, because I know the whole story can be interpreted in so many different ways, and I can't wait to listen to what you guys have to say about it. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more video essays like this. I've done one for Joker for Les Deux, and I will be doing another one probably for Return of the Living Dead next. That's been on my to-do list for about half a year now, and I've got to get to it, but I saw The Substance in the theaters and I had to make a video about it. So if you've seen it before, let me know what you thought about it. Let me know your thoughts and feelings, and until the next one, my name is Marcel from Aussie Horror, and I will catch you guys around.